Hi, this is Barry Pearman and welcome to another vlog from Turning the Page. It was one of those light bulb moments for me. I had just discovered something new that threw some new light on an old struggle that I'd had for quite some time. Ever had one of those? Those light bulb moments that just go off and you learn something huge? Well, what I learned is that Jesus did for us what we cannot do for ourselves, and that Jesus does not do for us what we can and should do for ourselves. I outline these and 8 other principles about how Jesus demonstrates empowerment in my ebook, So You Want to Help. The first 2 principles. 1. Jesus did for us what we cannot do for ourselves. I can try all I want to live a perfect life of sinlessness, but I fail dismally every time. Jesus did something that I just can't do. I needed this. I needed a rescuer. I was lost at sea in my attempts to be right with God. Jesus lived a perfect life on my behalf. No more brownie points to be earned to please God, because Jesus has done it all. Jesus is the perfect rescuer, doing for me what I'm totally incapable of doing myself. 2. Jesus does not do for me what I can and should do for myself. I so want Jesus to sweep in from the heavens and sort out all my issues, that he'd wave his magic wand and make all my problems disappear. I don't see Jesus doing this. Instead, I hear Jesus saying to the crippled man, "Take up your bed and walk," asking the disciples to go and find food for the starving thousands, inviting Peter to walk on water. Jesus knows that the only way we are going to learn and be formed into his likeness is if we are going to learn stuff ourselves, often the hard way. No child is ever going to learn to walk if they've been continually carried everywhere. They need to crawl and walk and fall, crawl, walk and fall. In the story of the man in the ditch, aka the Good Samaritan, we see both these principles being played out by the actions of the Samaritan. Let's read that story again. But a Samaritan, while travelling near him, when he saw him, he was moved with pity. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, having poured out oil and wine on them. Then he put him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, "Take care of him, and when I come back, I will repay you whatever more you spend." Phase 1. The rescue mission. The Samaritan encounters a half-dead corpse on the roadside. A man has been violently assaulted by thugs. There was nothing he could do for himself to recover. The Samaritan steps into the scene, applies good first aid, oil, bandages, touch, and probably some reassuring words whispered into a semi-conscious, blurry world. Phase 2. Rebuild mission. The Samaritan takes him into the inn, empowers the innkeeper to provide ongoing care. Think hospital, think rehab unit for victims, think walking frame where the victim has to teach his limbs how to walk again. Think coach standing alongside a man in a walking frame, encouraging him to take that next step. Think crawl, walk and fall. Crawl, walk and fall. The story also tells us that the innkeeper was willing to do it. It's finding the people with the skills and resources to be part of the rebuild mission, and you are one of them. We all have a part to play. I think I was led astray by the Good Samaritan, or perhaps the version that I was guilt-tripped on. That I need to rescue, that I need to do everything for others. Fueled along by songs such as J.O.Y., Jesus first, yourself last and others in between, sung to the tune of Jingle Bells, the thinking beliefs took shape. Add to this the victims who have unrealistic expectations of you to be like Jesus and rescue them, then it becomes a recipe for burnout and being bummed out. Let's take it into the context of mental health. In the 20 years of working at the coalface of people struggling with mental illnesses, there were only probably 4 or 5 times when I had to be a rescuer. There was a level of unwellness that had rendered the person incapable of making sound, rational decisions. I would see this in expressions of psychosis, mania or depression, etc. If I didn't intervene on their behalf, then the illness would progress and the situation may become dire. My intervention would often be to contact others in their support teams, such as doctors, nurses, etc., to get them the help they needed. I would rescue them to the point of getting them to those who could help them in ways I wasn't able to, getting them to the inn and the innkeeper. I would keep in contact and offer what support I could. I'm wary about community meals. For 13 years I pastored a church within a church for people with disabilities, primarily mental health related disabilities. At the end of every year we would have an end of year dinner. Often I would be approached by people in the larger church that were not involved with the living room, which is what we call it, but with a desire to cook the meal for them. Lovely, you might think, generous, kind and thoughtful. I politely said no and explained that the people within the living room would be the ones who would be doing the cooking, the serving and the cleaning the dishes. It was about empowering the community with something they could do themselves. They so enjoyed the camaraderie of the event and all went away buzzing with the opportunity to do something like this. An area where I did ask for help was in the area of transport, something many of the people could not do by themselves. Volunteers gave them time and were rewarded with relationships that changed them in deep and meaningful ways. Lives were changed because there was a culture of empowerment. So often our love for someone, our desire to heal their pain and to solve their problems may just be getting in the way of them working on the issues themselves. There is a time for everything, including rescuing, but let's focus on the rebuilding through empowerment. Here's some quotes for you to consider. Giving to those in need what they could be gaining through their own initiative may well be the kindest way to destroy people. That's from Robert Lupton. Another Robert Lupton quote is this: why do we persist in giving away food when we know it fosters dependency? Because it's easier. And the final quote: parity is the higher form of charity. Robert Lupton. Here's some questions to answer, and leave a comment below on the website, or leave an anonymous comment there on the website. So what is your natural default response to a need? Is it to rescue, rebuild, or a combination? Robert Lupton states that parity is the higher form of charity. What does he mean by this? Some people want to be rescued and some want help to rebuild. What makes the difference? Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this and found it really helpful. If you'd like to leave a comment, even an anonymous comment, then yeah, go over to turningthepage.info and leave a comment there. But I really want you to consider supporting me, and in particular going to patreon.com//Barry Pearman. Patreon is like Patron with an E. And support me with as little as $1 per month. It'll just make a huge difference to me. If you like this content, then sign up for my newsletter at turningthepage.info, and please share it through all the social networks. And thanks, and I'll see you next week.